Hey folks, welcome back to the Dungeon Dive. Daniel here. I hope you're doing well, and if you're not, I hope you are soon. Okay, today on the channel we have a real kind of low-key video for you, probably a long one, something just to watch while you're chilling. And this is a look at all of my Mork Borg stuff. And Mork Borg, as those of you who watch my top 10 solo RPGs will know that Mork Borg is one of my favorite RPGs of all time. I love it, and I love collecting Mork Borg stuff. Now, I haven't played everything that we're going to show today. I haven't used everything in games, but that doesn't really matter to me because I enjoy collecting and reading Mork Borg stuff just as much as I do playing it. And I kind of look at those two things as being two very different parts of this hobby that I enjoy. Over the years, we've done videos on a lot of this stuff. Some of it we haven't. And over that time, I've kind of lost track of what I've shown and what I haven't. So I thought I would just do kind of a state of the collection, the Mork Borg collection in 2025. I haven't purchased anything brand new in quite a while, so this will give me a chance to kind of reset. And I'm kind of feeling the urge to get some new things. Over the last year or so, it does seem like maybe the amount of Mork Borg things has shrunk a little bit. There hasn't been as many new things, or at least maybe I haven't been as plugged in as I was before to discover those new things. But let's start with the base book here. You know, we did just take a look at this on the top 10 solo RPGs, so I won't spend a lot of time. But I do think this is a beautiful book. I love reading this thing. I love all of the world and the lore and the tables and the weapons and the spells, the scrolls. All of that is super cool. And it's just a really well-made book. It feels great. You know, I've used this book a lot and it really holds up. It doesn't get damaged very easily. Just a really high quality book. And it's just, yeah, it's one of my favorite RPG books just to hold and browse and look through. And one of the things that I love about all of these books and supplements and things is that graphic design. I really do enjoy the graphic design. I know it's not for everybody and it's not made for everybody, and that is totally okay. So if you are interested in getting into Mork Borg as a solo RPG, I do definitely recommend the core book. And then I also do recommend Solitary Defilement, the kind of core solo rules created by Idiot 10, you know, the ID 1D10 plus 5 idiot, kind of that leet speak, that old kind of internet leet speak. Now, I believe that all of the physical versions of physical copies of Solitary Defilement are sold out, but you can buy the PDFs and you can make your own zines. As a matter of fact, I have a very detailed video on how to make your own zines on the channel. It's very easy. You just need a pretty good printer, some nice paper, and a good long arm stapler and a guillotine cutter. But I make a lot of my own zines. But Solitary Defilement to this day is one of my favorite solitary rules for any game. It was very kind of loosely based on Iron Sworn. It uses that kind of moves system where the moves tell you what you do and they tell you the outcome of whether you pass or fail the move. But it has all kinds of great generators and everything that you will need. You will also get your Alone in the Crowd book with Solitary Defilement, and this is for your urban adventures. You will get a few adventures that you can use to play, and these are really cool because you can kind of learn how to construct a solo adventure for yourself using Mork Borg. And then online, there are various generators that you can randomly generate these kinds of very simple little kind of point crawl, dungeon crawl adventures that you can work through. Very, very cool. I like these as inspiration. And then if you get into Mork Borg, or if you want to get into Mork Borg as a solo game, I also do recommend picking up a copy of Ferritory along with the base book and Solitary Defilement, because Ferritory has all kinds of great information and different little modules that you can plug in. And one of the main things it does add is some really good rules for overland travel, for when you are traveling from one location to the next, what happens at night, what happens when you camp, and it also adds some monster hunting rules, and these are very easy to kind of modify into their own little solo adventures. But Ferritory is an excellent, excellent little zine, and this is still readily available. If you want to take a little deeper dive, in here I also have Solitary Depths, which is an expansion for Solitary Defilement, and that's from Chaoclypse. So we have recently taken a look at this. Just a few other ways that you can augment your solo play. In this box, I also have some solo rules to die for. And these were created by... it's kind of hard to read there. That is one of the problems with some of these fonts that these designers use, is they can be hard to read. But this is the Mork Borg Solo Rules to Die For, Hexed Solo Rules to Die For. And I got this on, I believe I got this on itch.io. Now this does use AI art, and they were upfront about its use of AI art. I haven't looked too much into this, but I thought it could be interesting. And this is a zine that I made, and as you can see, it looks pretty good. But also in, let's see, in this box we have this journal here, came with the Max Moon edition of Solitary Defilement. And then I also have kind of a couple copies of the original Dark Fort, which kind of inspired Mork Borg. And this was a very, very simple little solo dungeon crawl where you were just trying to overcome challenges that you would roll up on a random table. But I love this little box. I think it's so cool. I like little boxes that hold the things that I use to play. I've talked about that before on the channel, and it kind of stems back to my early days, of course, with Dungeons and Dragons, with the basic red set, where I had this box, and every time I would open the box, it was like cracking a box of an interesting world open, and I could keep all of my characters and dungeons and things in that box. And I've just always liked little boxes like this. Speaking of boxes, next let's go to an actual official box for Mork Borg. And this is called the Box of Terrors. Do not open this box. The horrors within this vile receptacle are eager to escape and inflict unspeakable pain on the world. So this box is super cool. And I just have all kinds of stuff shoved in here, all kinds of random Mork Borg things. But the box itself, it has all kinds of random tables. It actually has a use. I believe there's also random tables on the inside bottom of the box. But here we have different ways to have a little hex crawl. Very, very cool. And now let's just start going through this box and see what I have in here. So Smorgasbord, a disgusting buffet of vile delights for your campaign. This book is intended for Mork Borg game masters only. So hey, if you're a solo player, you can read this, or you can just break that rule and read it anyways. But this book just has all kinds of little things that you can add to your games, and it's, you know, presented as a menu. So this is like a smorgasbord here, a smorgasbord of Mork Borg. So we have small bites, big bites, desserts. Who made this? The credits there. You can read that, and all of their little things there. So yeah, this is a neat book, very well made. And again, one of the joys of Mork Borg, one of the joys of all of these third-party supplements is just finding that one thing. You know, you might find a little bit of spice just in this one book that adds a lot to your game. Simple, like fishing. So there is a Fisk Borg supplement. We'll take a look at that sometime during this video. But you can you could be a fisherman in the world of Mork Borg and just go around and catch weird fish if you want to do that. That's a really neat supplement. Some different NPCs here that you might want to add to your games. There's a drawing by friend of the channel, Waclaw Treyer. Strange Parasites. What is that? Is that a D6 Strange Parasites? No, a D8. D8 Strange Parasites. Maybe you could have one of your characters inflicted with a parasite and have an adventure for them trying to get a cure. There's another drawing by Waclaw Treyer. The Witch's Teat. Some more NPCs that you can meet. and just a little bit more information. So kind of a cool little zine there. Now this one is really cool. This came with a pack that I bought, and this is 4d20 swords, which are not just +1 swords. So this is a whole bunch of different swords, and you could easily roll up one of these swords and then go on an adventure on how to find that sword. So make up your own little weapon MacGuffin there and have an adventure. I've used this quite frequently in solo games that I've played, and I really enjoy that. This is an adventure, Whispers in the Darkness. Has a nice random table on the back there. So here we have all of our information. Now the pre-published adventures I often don't use because I find them hard to use for solo play, and it's just not the style of solo play that I enjoy. I enjoy making things up as I go, but I often will use these kind of pre-published adventures as inspiration, or I'll take, you know, a little area from one and maybe just explore it on my own. But I very rarely play through pre-published adventures from beginning to end. I just like to look at them as inspiration. And speaking of inspiration, we have Papa Mush, the Patriarch of the Sallow Grove. This is an NPC, or maybe an enemy that you could fight or meet. Maybe you go into some kind of fungal forest, and there are Papa's possessions. What do we have here? The Molded Man. This is another kind of enemy, or you could use as an NPC. Again, just all kinds of really useful inspiration and information. So I love just plugging this stuff into my games. These were some supplements that came with an adventure, some supplement maps that you might want to hand out to players if you're playing through the adventure. This is kind of an updated Dark Fortress, Dark Fort, kind of a different take on that kind of original, really small, super simple Mork Borg. We have a little bookmark here. And this is just some lore, some prophecies that you could add to your games. We have the Portents and Curses of the Prince of Gorge for solo play. Although for solo play is crossed out, but that's probably just a little bit of art there. So another kind of, you can use these. It's a D20 kind of a MacGuffin system. Very similar to on the back of the Fallen solo rules from Perplexing Ruins, how he had those images, and you could roll up an image to kind of spark your imagination. Maybe it's portents and curses. So just something to get the juices flowing. And then what do we have here? I hope you don't die in Kyrgyz. So Kyrgyz is an area, I believe it's a forest area in the world of Mork Borg, but this is kind of a little dungeon that you can go through. I have a lot of things with Mork Borg with living dungeons, with these large monsters like the Masticator Gate that we'll take a look at, or Darkest Rock, where the dungeons are living things. That seems to be a common theme within this world, something that a lot of creators like to work with. It came from the West, a roll of D6 on the map. Okay, so this is a little kind of a D6D6, I'm trying to say, a D6D6 roll, and then you can check for various things on this card. Just another thing to add some randomness. Yeah, there's so much cool stuff. This is a big kind of map here. So that's kind of the main map of the world there, with some different tables that you could roll on. We've got this map here. So this map was used in one of the pre-published adventures that came with this set. I believe it's used in the Cross Stitch. Now this is probably my least read, my least used adventure, because this is one of the more, that map here was from this. So this is the village that this adventure takes place in. This is one of the more traditional, more complex pre-published adventures for Mork Borg. This one definitely needs a GM to keep track of time, because time will be ticking away and the villagers will be kind of doing their own things as time ticks away. And I believe there's also some time travel. So if you're looking for something that you want to run that has that feel of kind of a more complex D&D module, you might want to look at the Cross Stitch, and that is from Foresight Studio. This did come in a bundle. And here we have Quake Borg, Foul Adventures in a Doomed Dimension. So hey, do you like Quake? Do you like Mork Borg? You might want to check out Quake Borg. So I believe that this adds like guns and things, kind of similar to Quake. This is from Bird Silhouette Games here, inspired by id Software's Quake. We do have some more fish, so you can add these fish to your games of Fish Borg. We do have our bestiary there. So these are all the enemies that you can find in Quake Borg. And then I believe it does have some cool weapons, which are like guns and things inspired by Quake. We have a new class here, the Slipgate Ranger. Another really cool thing is a lot of these supplements will just have, one or two unique classes that you can play in any other game of Mork Borg. And some of the unique classes have a lot going on. Here we have our armory. So we have a shotgun and a super shotgun, a nail gun, grenade launcher. So hey, if you want to add some crazy ranged weapons to your games of Mork Borg, we have a D8 traps here, some different treasure, different ways to generate your kind of Quake environments and some of your lore for Quake Borg. We have a Doorway to Blasphemy. So this is a little zine that I made. And I didn't write it, but I printed it. And this is an adventure for Quake Borg. So this would be some kind of installation that you are traveling through. So kind of your typical kind of a dungeon crawl. Not too useful for the solo player, but I just thought it was really cool, this kind of mix of Quake and Mork Borg. And then here we have 30 Days of Mork Borg Volume 2. Do I have my other volume? I don't think I ever bought the other volumes of this. I saw them at a local game store. They got in a big kind of shipment of Mork Borg related things. And I thought it was okay, but I didn't love this enough to buy volumes 1 and 2. I think I picked this one up. Or volumes 1 and 3. I believe there are 3 volumes of 30 Days of Mork Borg, if I'm not mistaken. There might be more now. Again, I've kind of lost the pulse of what's going on with Mork Borg. But this just has some various adventures that you can go through. I like the city event chart and the city rumors. Now, a lot of these things, even though I have the physical copies, you can also get on PDF. I mean, almost everything made for Mork Borg is also on PDF. So, you could just print out the pages you like and keep a binder of the things that you find useful, because some of the charts in these adventures are very useful. Like a cemetery event. There's lots of grave sites in Mork Borg because there's lots of dead scum around. A D10 chart for grave plundering. That could always be useful. So again, a lot of these things just have little nuggets of coolness that you can introduce into your games. Encounters on the Coast, Fungal Change. Those 2 tables there are very useful. Or maybe just a really small page here of 4 NPCs that you can use in an adventure. There's a few more NPCs. And so it's just, because the rules are so simple, it's so easy to kind of mix and match and plug things in a game of Mork Borg. And that's one of the reasons I enjoy it so much. It's very, very easy to kind of just combine a whole bunch of random things. Okay, so we have the Book of Misery. This was one of the first supplements that I got when I initially bought Mork Borg. We have a whole bunch of different classes. So the Thinking Thinker, the Nihilistic Conqueror, Hag of the Gaigon Age, Man's Best Friend, the Sewer Baby, and the Ashen Warrior. We have critical fail tables. Excellent. I love a good critical fail table. We have more weapons. We have different monsters. So this is a really useful little zine here. The Thinking Thinker, if you want to play a big brainiac with some kind of brain parasite. The Nihilistic Conqueror. That image there was recently used for one of Cesar Capacal's games, Against the Wind or something. Interesting. I didn't know that was kind of a I don't know, I guess that was probably designed for this, or maybe that's just a piece of stock art that people have enjoyed using and they license it out. Hag of a Bygone Age, if you want to play some kind of cursed nun. Man's Best Friend, if you want to have a dog companion for your solo adventures. There is Man's Best Friend. The Sewer Baby. Raised in the festering sewers of a decaying city, the putrid toxic excrement has solidified your physical age. You have the physical appearance of a child and the cunning. That could be a fun character to play. So here we have our critical fails if you're attacking or you're defending. I always love a good crit chart. Some new weapons you can add, and then a whole bunch of new enemies. Some negative T's, some positive T's. So there is another big enemy there. The Howling Caverns, a little dungeon with D4 random encounters and your various rooms that you'll find. The Putrid House, another little dungeon. So very cool, very useful. The Book of Misery is great. And then we also have the Book of Misery Volume 2. So we have different classes: the Wise Zealot, the Witch Hunter, the Renegade Sanguine, and the Reborn Fungus. New monsters. We have a cool group of NPCs, new magic items, the Slaughter Tunnels of Pumpkin Valley, and a Witch Generator. Let's take a look at that Witch Generator. So here we have the Slaughter Tunnels of Pumpkin Valley. That's a great image that they use there. Super cool. So just a little dungeon crawl. And we have our Witch Generator. So we have a D20, so we can roll up a D20 random name, goal, and a true appearance. That is very useful there. Let's go back here, take a look at the classes: Wise Zealot, the Witch Hunter, the Renegade Sanguine, the Reborn Fungus, Monsters and Beasts. So we have a bestiary here. Lots of bestiaries. I also have some standalone bestiaries. Places to go and people to see. So here we have a trader and a quest giver. Excellent. It's always nice to have a way to generate random quests. We have a couple other NPCs, and we have some really nifty magic items. So yeah, Book of Miseries, these are cool. I need to see if they have done more of these. And then this came with the box, I believe, and that is D12 Skeletal Encounters. And this is kind of like a little folder here, so you can keep some index cards in here of other undead creatures. But this is, as it says, D12 skeletons and ways to equip skeletons and their tasks, and a couple of kind of special skeletons. So D12 skeletal encounters. This was a very big kind of fold out map adventure. I will fold this out kind of in between takes here, in between cuts, and then we'll have this on the background. This is a map that came with an adventure, with an art, with a poster on the back, and then this map here. This was actually given to the Dungeon Dive as a review copy. We'll take a look at the adventure that this is from a little later. Here we have another version of the Dark Fortress here. My old copy of D20 Swords, which are not +1. This is just a little zine that I printed out before I was able to get the official pamphlet. And then, oh man, there's so many goodies in this box. I love it. I love just opening this and looking at everything. We have gloves of horrible suffering. So that's kind of a unique item that you can maybe go search for. So inside the box is a hex crawl here. And the hex crawl corresponds to this system here. And then, so yeah, so this whole little box is actually an expansion. Let's see, we have an unfinished task here. Skeletal Man at Arms, and just a little tiny kind of 2-area adventure pamphlet. And then we have a few more of those little pamphlets here. Let's see, we have the Zombie Portal. So here we have some Shambling Dead, a new enemy type. And again, another 2-area little micro adventure. We have the Forest Stones. and enemy there, and enemy there, getting to the stones, a little kind of almost like a little point crawl where you roll on the table to see what happens as you are getting to the stones. So just these little micro adventures. And finally here we have the Chamber of Screams, the Inhuman Prisoner, a new enemy to face off against. And here we have a little 6-area dungeon, another little kind of micro adventure. And then, oh, actually we do have one more. How could I forget? In the Ruins of the Towers. And all of this, a lot of the stuff that came with this box was created by Philip Reed. So again, another micro adventure. Now these are pretty cool. These are these kind of fold out maps. They almost look like old maps you would buy at a gas station on a road trip. And we have Fathomless Despair and Return to the Valley of Despair. And these fold out into a double-sided adventure. I mean, look, how cool is that? I love that. It's this crazy map, this crazy adventure. On the back here, we have the hex map that you will be playing through. I mean, it's kind of unwieldy. It's kind of not very useful. You have to kind of flip this giant thing over while you are playing, but I just love the creativity of this. And I don't see too many RPGs coming out with things like this, and that is one of the things that I love. I won't do that same fold out here. Let's do it. Let's do it. So this is for Return to the Valley of Despair, Valley of the Dolls here. More vile foes, different skeletons. Man, this is so cool. D20 random encounters. Very, very useful. And on the back here, we have more information about this adventure, more random encounters. So yeah, super cool. I love this. This is so unique. These little things like this, these are the only two things that I own that are like this, and they're both for Mork Borg. And that's just one of the things that I love about this game. The creativity that all of the different designers put into all of this stuff. All right, so I'm going to put everything back into this box. We'll fold out this map, and then we will continue on with the video. So how's that for a splash of color? This is kind of an adventure that's supposed to be played, I think, kind of like a comic book. To tell you the truth, I've never really figured out exactly how to use this, but I do want to get this framed. I think this will look really nice on a wall. But let's go on to this stack here and take a look at one of the most robust kind of not complex, but just, yeah, this thing is robust. There's a lot going on, and this is the Tephrotic Nightmares, and this was actually published by Exalted Funeral. And this is a big, huge kind of hex crawl with all kinds of neat things to discover, but it also comes with a map and some little game pieces. And the stuff in this envelope kind of reminds me of Cult Evil, or Cave Evil, I should say. Cave Evil and War Cults. But this is, to the north is an ocean without water. Mountains form islands in a sea of ash and cinder. Boats built of bone and sinew slice across the gray waves, hunting the strange fauna and one another. So what this adds is a whole system of ship movement and naval combat to Mork Borg. And so we have these little tokens here that we can punch out for our different vessels and different things to discover on the maps here. We have some small maps. So this is the map of the Ashen Sea. And I believe this is an additional small map of the Ashen Sea that you might be able to pass out to your players. And then we do get also this hex paper here to use for our kind of detailed naval combat. And then we also get a very large map of the hex area. I guess this is mainly for kind of bigger naval battles. I have not used the rules for this yet in any games, but I thought it might be interesting to kind of see how it compares to Pirate Borg, or maybe using this kind of as a supplement for Pirate Borg, because I think that would work as well. But there are the credits there for the Tephrotic Nightmares. And this is a wonderfully produced book. Now, when I first heard about this, somebody said that the covers were actually made out of wood. I don't know if that's true. It might be balsa wood, but to me it just feels like really thick, kind of hard-pressed cardboard. But it's nice and stitched. I mean, yeah, this book, this is such a neat design. And a lot of this stuff is still available and not very expensive. It hasn't become a collector's item yet. And I think I saw these just today, late August in 2025 for 30 or 40 bucks on eBay. Really nice paper, has a good texture to it. So here you have all the information about our boats, how to create your boat, how to upgrade your boat with different kit, and defenses and offensive weapons, different utilities that you can add to your boat, all of your rules for boat combat, and then all of your rules for boat travel. Here we have some random encounters for while you are at sea. And then the rest of the book really is just your bestiary and also your detailed hex keys for the points of interest that you will be discovering along the way. There are dungeons, there are creatures, there are bosses, there are all kinds of things to discover. So yeah, this is a really, really nicely produced supplement here. One of the best produced supplements that I've seen for Mork Borg. Even though I don't typically get a lot of use out of this in my solo games, I still like to have it. I still like to pick it up every once in a while and just read through it to just kind of like as you're reading a book or a comic book or something. And I get a lot of enjoyment out of that. Here we have one of the original zines that came out, and that is Heretic. And this is kind of, you can buy this along with Feretory, and this has some very, very useful things in it. We have how to create a cult. I love this. You guys know that I love cults in RPGs, especially these kind of dark, kind of twisted RPGs. It's always nice to have a cult. We have a D66 table of unheroic feats. So when you level up, you can choose to roll on this table here to just learn something new. Maybe you can be an herbalist healer or have an iron stomach or have hyper awareness. I like this a lot. This really does spice up your solo games by making your characters more unique. And often when I start a new game of Mork Borg, I will actually start a character with one of these unheroic feats already unlocked. I do like that. Here we have some different classes. So the Sacrilegious Songbird. We have the Shedding Vicar. Graves Left Wanting. This is a really cool adventure. Really neat. I like this adventure a lot. We kind of played through kind of a modified version of this adventure. We played kind of co-op using the rules from Solitary Defilement. And we had fun just kind of passing the book around and kind of GMing for each other on the fly. You Are Cursed, so you want to roll up some curses. Now, this is another really cool supplement in Heretic that I enjoy. And this is a traveling merchant. And so in your solo games, you could play as you're traveling. You could use the traveling rules from Feretory. And then, on a roll a D8, and on a 1, you happen to have an encounter with this traveling merchant. And there are all kinds of things that the traveling merchant sells. And all of those could be very useful for generating ideas for adventures. Here we have some rules for black powder weapons. Here we have another scenario. Flip through that real quick. Just a really well-designed book. This thing is awesome. And then what do we have on the back cover here? We have the Rotten Nurse. Nurse the Rot. So there's a little kind of a little point crawl system there. Another little micro adventure. All right, let's see. Valley of the Forbidden Church. I do have some maps for this that I laminated. Let me pull those out real quick. So one thing I did is found just the basic rules for Mork Borg and made them into a laminated sheet. So there's basically all of the rules for the game. Love that. I love that simplicity. And then these maps here, actually, what was that? Oh, yeah, so I did take one of the covers of one of my zines that I had an extra copy of, fell off. And so I laminated the pages. I just thought that looked kind of cool. Always fun to use a laminator. And then these 3 maps are for the Valley of Forbidden Churches. And I have used this as a solo supplement. I've played through it solo, and this is a really cool supplement. I like this a lot because of these maps. You know, you can work your way through the maps and go to the various points of interest. So the Valley of Forbidden Churches, and then the Demon Worm Tunnels, and the Silver City. And those are all covered in the Valley of Forbidden Churches. I think this is one of my favorites that I've played through. It's very easy to play solo. You know, if you just kind of only look at the things you're supposed to look at, but this is a fun adventure. It has good randomizers in here, different encounters, and just really fun, unique setting. I like it a lot. Valley of Forbidden Churches. This was my original version, was just a zine that I made before I found a physical copy to purchase. Here is, and again from Exalted Funeral, we have the Borg Morg, issue 666, an unofficial zine for a dying world, with words and design by Grayson Yant and art mostly by dead people. We've talked about that. So what do we have? New Ways to Die, Random Tables, Runic Powers, Misery, Stress, Misery, Stress, and Torture, Become a God, So Many Cultists, Curses, Lots of Teeth, and Weapons, Armor, and Spiky Armor. So all kinds of things. Again, just little modules that you can plug in. D66 surprises when looking for almost anything else. Very, very handy. Anything from this list could be used to kind of inspire an adventure. And we have a little adventure there. Fucking with the dice. So this is a kind of a modified system of using a different dice system for some things in Mork Borg. For those of you who want something a little more, just a tad more complex, you might want to look into this. I think it's pretty interesting. I've taken a closer look at that before. Heavy metal reforged, so all kinds of different weapons and armor. Scars and other ways to break, different ways to kind of injure your characters in more interesting ways. Mental manuscript, or dental manuscript. Oh wow, a thing all about teeth. Cultists of the Dying Gods. Methods of torture and the psyche's limits. On an Island of Dying Gods. Tools of a Dark Fort. American Pantheon. These are like gods based off of like American things. That's pretty funny there. 7 palms for 7 psalms. The Odic Force trapped in a Mork Borg. D12-ish curses for weapons. 8 liches. D12-ish odd oddities. So yeah, very cool. I like that a lot. And then let's see, coming up here, Fiskborg or Fishborg. This is an awesome book. Unfortunately, the printing from Drive-Thru RPG wasn't great in this book. The pages don't extend all the way, and the writing is the gutter doesn't extend far enough, and the page is too short. So it is kind of hard to read this. You kind of have to really pry it open to look into that gutter. It's unfortunate. I think I want to try to find this as a PDF and just make my own, because it would be easier to read. But hey, if you want to play a whole game where you are just a fisherman in the world of Mork Borg, you could buy this supplement and just go fishing and live this weird kind of hermit life in this dying world, upgrading your fishing pole, getting new lures and different types of bait, and then trying to catch the biggest fish. If you want to be an angler scum, then Fiskborg is for you. This is really cool. I love this creativity. And then here we have, I think I was a Kickstarter backer on this one from Creature Curation. Who was Fiskborg by? Let me just find the page there. There you go. You can take a look at that. But this is the Crawling Death Below the Dying Forest. So this is kind of a typical adventure module. Do you dare enter the dying forest where your own kin have been engulfed and swallowed alive? As early as you could speak, you called it the Forest of the Dead, and even then, only in a hushed tone. If you step foot inside, will anyone ever hear from you again? or are those just fearful tales from the meek? So this is cool because this has ways to randomize the dungeon. And so this can be very useful for the solo player if you just want to go through a kind of random dungeon. Because I believe there are D66 rooms, 20, 29, 30, 54. I'm pretty sure there are about D66 rooms. So it's very easy to randomize the different pathways through. So you don't have to go through just a set dungeon. And then each room you roll up would have your description and different challenges that you would have to overcome. So this is actually a really useful little adventure supplement for the solo player. I like this one quite a bit. And I think there are some cool randomizers here in the back. We have different relics that you could search for. And let's see here. What else is in here? Different enemies there. So it has a whole bestiary. Some random tables there. So different scrolls, medium creatures, large creatures, undead creatures. No use to the dead, a D66, a loot table there. Some random traps. So yeah, so very, very useful here. Okay, coming up next, we have Beyond Deep. And this is from Spooky Bell Games. This one I haven't spent a lot of time with, and I always forget I own it. And every time I pick it up, oh man, I need to really read through this to see what I can get out of it. So there are the credits there. But this is kind of I would say probably a campaign setting, a different setting for Mork that you could play in, kind of a mining setting, and also an adventure with background. And this is a pretty robust little campaign setting at almost 100 pages. It's one of the longer books for Mork. And it does have a different kind of look to it, a different style. It almost looks like it's kind of set in a Western setting. You know, there is a Western full conversion for Mork, but I haven't played that yet. And I can't remember what that's called offhand, but this might be a really good supplement for that. But it does have some random generators, and it does look like it has a pretty good bestiary. So some things that you could kind of plug into your games. Let's see, these three things, I think all four of these I got on, I believe I got all of these on Drive-Thru RPG. So this is Grave Matters. And of course, Grave Matters, as the name suggests, deals with all kinds of skeletons and Graventosk, which is the region of the dying world that's all the kind of one big cemetery. But if you like skeletons and you like crypts and graves and tombs, this is a really cool little supplement for you. Okay, next up we have Grave Matters Dig Deeper. So this is, as the name suggests, a supplement for Grave Matters. So just more undead, more skeletons, more grave sites, more tombs. But this is a really nice book. You know, I love skeletons. Skeletons are some of my favorite enemies to fight. My favorite things, grave sites and weird tombs with underground layers are some of my favorite things to discover in games. And this was actually from Madeline Ember, and this is Corpse Walk Cove. And this came out before Pirate Borg, but this would be a great supplement for your games of Pirate Borg. So this is a pirate-themed adventure and supplement and setting for the original Mork. But now that Pirate Borg is out, this would probably be even more useful. We have different ships. You know, you could also use this for your Tefrotic Nightmares if you want to have kind of a little sub-region that you could explore. But this is really cool. I love this book a lot. And the font is a little tiny, so it can be a little hard to read, but it is jam-packed with information and different classes and a good bestiary and just kind of a lot of really cool stuff to explore. So Corpse Walk Cove is super cool. And then this is a really good supplement here, Glimpses of a Dying World. I found this one to be quite useful. because we have all kinds of different encounters, rituals, and ancient artifacts, whispers from the prophets, drunken tales of savagery, just all kinds of great little things that you can add to your games. The encounters here, just all kinds of a really good bestiary with interesting creatures that you could fight or discover. Different types of monsters and demons and all kinds of really cool things. So yeah, Glimpses of a Dying World is pretty cool. Just some silly, lowly minions that you can fight. Different types of characters, sorcerers. A dying world is alive and in agony. Roll for rumors. I love a good chart of rumors. Rumors are always fun because you can just roll a rumor and have a whole little adventure just revolving around a rumor. Okay, so earlier we took a look at a big fold-out map that was in my box, and that map was by this from Philip Jensen, or it was for this, and this is, I can never remember the name of this because I can never, Trapped Within, that's right. Yeah, Trapped Within. That's very easy to read, right? Entrapped in prison, trapped within for a long forgotten, minuscule, non-existent, not real sin. I swore, but yesterday I was dead. So this is a really cool dungeon crawl that you work through this dungeon here, and it's keyed and it has all of your encounters and everything. Again, probably not super useful primarily for the soloist, but this is useful to kind of just give your spark your imagination. And you could use any one of these rooms as an encounter in any of your solo adventures. But a really nice book. I love the way that it's bound. Yeah, just super cool. Very nice design. And that map is also pretty handy. So Mork sometimes has the reputation of being dark and twisted and edgy, but I think a lot of people maybe fail to recognize that it's also full of a sense of humor. And it's dark, but I don't think it takes itself very seriously. I find a lot of humor in a lot of the Mork stuff. However, this Pilgrimage of the Penitent, this is pretty dark. I think this one kind of crosses that line into being truly adult. And so you might see some possibly not safe for work images. And this is from Nick Ribera here. And this is a book that I don't use a lot. So this is a pretty kind of a robust campaign adventure. But this does deal with some pretty adult themes and it's pretty gruesome. But there are some neat things in here. But yeah, so I think this is one of the books that I would say is kind of truly adult in nature. And so if you don't like that kind of stuff in your games and you don't enjoy looking at books with that kind of stuff in it, then you might want to avoid this. But there are some pretty useful things. There's a lot of random tables and a lot of random smells. It's always nice to have a table of random smells. But yeah, Pilgrimage of the Penitent is one that I would say is kind of more for adults. And it does kind of cross that line into being maybe a little gruesome, a little more gruesome, without that kind of sense of humor about it. But let's see, we have one more small zine to look at, and this is a zine that I made, and this is for a town called Harrowshade. And you could use this with your solo supplement with Alone in the Crowd from Solitary Defilement to kind of play some adventures in this pre-made setting, this pre-made town. And you might be able to convert this for maybe a town that you could explore in something like Fallen, if you're into playing the Fallen RPG. Let's quickly go now to some standalone bestiaries. And so I know we have taken a look at quite a few of these on the channel before, but here we have one just called Bestiary. And there are the credits there for you to read. And so, yeah, this just has a whole bunch of different creatures here. We have saltwater horrors. We have creatures from the forest, on the city streets, different types of rats, beneath the icy tundra, underground, Renford's catacomb. So all kinds of different locations that you can find all of these strange creatures. There are a lot of bestiaries for Mork, and one thing that I think they are all missing are random tables to roll up your random encounter with one or more of these monsters, of these creatures, of these encounters. And I'm not quite sure why so many Mork Borg supplements kind of fail to include something like that. But it's always fun. You know, you're not really supposed to have leveled encounters in Mork Borg. It's supposed to always be dangerous. And so you could just kind of randomly flip to a page and look at something. But I would appreciate if these bestiaries would often come, or would more often come with tables that we could roll up encounters on. 40 Fiends, a bestiary. This is a really cool bestiary. I like this one a lot. And this is written by friend of the channel, Toby Lancaster. He made 2D6 Dungeon and 2D6 Realms, which I still need to look at 2D6 Realms, but this has some great art and just some really cool twisted creatures to encounter. And again, I think it is missing one of those. We do have an index of creatures, so that's kind of nice. You could add numbers there to roll. But this also does have some really helpful charts in the back for rolling up random things. We have ghastly wounds, different types of poisons, prophetic happenings. Those are cool rumors. Sundering tempest, different types of parasites, unexpected death, and the creature stands before you and what are they doing. So just some nice tables to add some spice to your encounters and your creatures. And then here we have a 3-volume set called Creatures of the Dying World, number 1, number 2, and number 3. And I believe these are all from Johnny Bluesit. But these are pretty cool. These are kind of unique encounters. There's some cryptids and things in these, but I like the art a lot. It's quite a bit different than the art in a lot of the Mork Borg books. It has this kind of watercolor, more of a cartoony vibe. And I really do like the size of these kind of digest magazine sizes. That's a great cover there. Super cool. We have brownies, things like brownies, Men of War, the Kraken, the Night Terror. There's the Mothman, the Utter Spawn. And you not only get the simple stats for each monster, but you do get some really cool lore. And so you could use these for more than just combat encounters. You could use these for like weird NPCs and just weird things to encounter. The Table of Delusional Afflictions, that's a D66 table. Always nice to have something like that. And then here we have Callow's Book of Monsters. And this is actually from Steve Jackson Games. Even Steve Jackson has jumped on the Mork Borg train. But this is a really cool bestiary here because it has adventure hooks for involving the players for each of the monsters. And I like that because it's not just the stats, it's not just a little bit of lore, but it also has some ways to generate adventures if you want to go on kind of a monster hunting expedition for each one of these huge monstrosities. And it also has D66 rumors, which I have used quite a few times in my solo games. So that is Callow's Book of Monsters from Steve Jackson Games. A really cool bestiary from Steve Jackson there. Okay, I have 2 kind of large hardback supplements here. We have the Masticator Gate, and the Masticator Gate is used in conjunction with this Demon deck, which we have looked at before. And I got both of these on Drive-Thru RPG or Drive-Thru Cards. And these are really cool because you can kind of mix and match your different body parts to create different demons. And my deck is all out of order here. So we have heads, torsos, and legs. And if you remember those old kind of flip books we had as kids where you could mix and match monster parts in order to make different monsters, well, you can use these cards to make different demons. And I think that is super cool. So we could take this head here, this body here, and the feet here, and then those would be combined into the Ravenous Head Lopper. And then you would have different stats for each demon depending on the cards that you draw. And you also get a really cool depiction. So there are a whole bunch of different feet, and the different feet will give you a different type of power. We have your torsos here, and these will give you your main stats for each of the demons. And then we have your heads here, and the heads here will also give them some kind of additional thing that they will do. I like this deck a lot. I like the idea of that. It's very easy to use, very quick to generate just kind of a weird, bizarre, random demon. And then those demons are used in the Masticator Gate. And the Masticator Gate is a pretty robust campaign, especially for Mork Borg. It's one of the bigger campaigns for Mork Borg. It has your typical kind of hex crawl and your adventures within these kinds of ruins and different types of dungeons that you can go through. There's a lot of useful stuff in this for the solo player with different beasts, a pretty complex or pretty comprehensive bestiary, good random tables and charts, and then all of the stats for the normal demons if you don't feel like mixing and matching. So that is the Masticator Gate. This one here, Darkest Rock, I got this from severedbooks.com. I actually got this on Etsy. They were having a closeout. I think they had a bunch that didn't sell or something. And this is a cave crawl here. And even though they're only made 500, they were blowing them out for next to nothing. There's the credits there. But yeah, so this is another kind of big dungeon crawl. It does have some new classes that are specifically for this type of setting. We have the Vile Geyser, the Fanged Deserter. We have the Gutterborn Scum, the Esoteric Hermit, and the Wretched Royalty, and the Heretical Priest, the Occult Herb Master. And then here we have all of the information about the dungeon that you will be going through, the different monsters that you will be fighting. And then in the back here, we do have some new weapons that you can get, some random encounters for your cave, some new scrolls. And then we have our keyed map here that corresponds to each one of the different chambers that you might discover. And some of the chambers are random, so those are really cool. Chambers A, B, C, and D are randomized chambers, so you could have a little 4-room solo dungeon crawl using those random generators there. So that is Darkest Rock. Now let's see. We're almost done. We're almost done. I know this is a long video, but let's go to some cards here. Let me move these maps. So we have these cards. These cards will keep separate. Those will keep separate. So we do have some cards for your standard Mork Borg. So this set here is really nice. This is the Mork Borg compatible reference cards. And on the box there is some really black printing for all of the cards in the book. So these are just reference cards that you can use. Now, one thing I was a little disappointed in this is I was hoping it would have more creatures. It only has a handful of creatures, and these are mostly like dogs, rats, and mules. So I was hoping it would have more bestiary, like a bestiary deck, but it has all kinds of equipment. So all kinds of things. You could randomize equipment. And what's really cool is you do also get some lore associated with them. So these could be used for generating random adventures. And then we also get a whole a deck of different classes and different things for the different classes to use. I think these are super cool. I love these a lot. These are really useful for just, very quickly drawing a card and maybe sparking your imagination for something. Different types of scrolls, so different powers and spells that you can use. And these cards here are also used for an included solo game called the Card Thief. And so this is a game that you can play with the various decks of cards while you are playing Mork Borg. And it comes with some different cards here that you can use to keep track of different stats and stuff. I haven't played the game yet, but I thought that was a really neat touch. And so I got this on Kickstarter, and it was delayed for quite a while. But I think overall, I'm pretty happy with these core reference cards. I just wish it had a more robust deck of beasts, a deck of monsters. The Portents of the Degloved Hand. We have definitely taken a look at this before. This is such a nice little set here. So well made. And these are just little things so you can take a rest in Mork Borg and you can sit around the fire and you can kind of consult the bones. You know, you can roll these odd D4 to draw a random deck out of here and have a new kind of prophecy or something that might happen. And these will give you maybe a special ability or some special impairment that you have to deal with. So we have a deck of death, we have a deck of disaster, we have a deck of destruction, and we have a deck of disease. And I love how the cards are color coded on the side for each one of their decks. So just a really nice production here. Was this put out by, whoops, forgot to put that back in the box. I don't think this was put out by Exalted Funeral, but I know that I think they do sell these on Exalted Funeral. Oh yeah, it is Exalted Funeral. Portents of the Degloved Hand, an independent production of Raven Portents LLC. Really nice deck of cards. I like that a lot. And then this is not cards, but you can use these 4 books as cards. And so the Ancient God Vessels of Cured Skin and Soot Black Wood, as rare and as valuable as they are blasphemous. The oldest Gaggenbracken priestess called the Necobrul's left hand carved the icons with a knife. And so these are just things that you can use to spice up your games. You can randomly draw a book, take that book out, and then I believe each book is D10. So we would roll a D10. Let's say we rolled a 3, and then we could look at 3, what we rolled here, and that is the Old Dead. So this book is about the Old Dead. Each book has kind of a different theme. So we have the Old Dead and the Beck Lure. So 3, she deigns to look up, her penetrating necro gaze, scrutinizing you and all of your folly. Look away, test presence with a difficulty of 10, or witness death's glorious kingdom with the Old Dead until you quietly expire. So just some cool ways to add some lore and some different things to your games. I do get quite a bit of use out of these solo if I just kind of need a spark. You need a spark table, need something to kind of maybe break down a block that you're suffering from to keep your game going. Okay, so next up we have kind of the full conversion mods, starting with, let's start with Forbidden Psalm. And so Forbidden Psalm is a solo or co-op or competitive miniatures game, a little skirmish game. And I like Forbidden Psalm quite a bit. I have done some videos on Forbidden Psalm, but this is the basic rules. I think it plays so well solo, and it's so easy to get into. And you can use any of your other Mork Borg things, any other things that you have to add to Forbidden Psalm. And so everything you have for Mork Borg also expands Forbidden Psalm. If you want to use the more complex combat from this in your games of Mork Borg, you can. Now you can also get a deck of cards that has all of your stats and things for the various monsters. So it's very easy to kind of house rule and play Forbidden Psalm without using one of the standard scenarios if you just want to set something up. And so this bestiary deck can also be used for Mork Borg, which is really nice. I like when things have multiple uses. And then we have these various kind of campaign books for Forbidden Psalm. We have Regicide, and we also have the Footsteps of the Mad Wizard. I believe that this one is a direct continuation of the small campaign in Forbidden Psalm, but you will just have more people to add to your warband. You have more enemies to fight, more optional rules to include, more random things to encounter, and then a whole bunch of different scenarios. And the same goes for Regicide. And so this is another really cool way to add to augment your games of Forbidden Psalm. There are all kinds of random encounters and new beasts, and then a pretty cool, I think it's a 10 act campaign. So we have 10 different scenarios that you can go through, or maybe 12 different scenarios. So these are really cool. And then I have a few little small books for Forbidden Psalm. And we have the Dungeon of Death. So this is a way to have little dungeon encounters, similar to the dungeon supplement that they created for the Elder Scrolls, the Skyrim skirmish game. And then we have here, so this was done in conjunction with the Forbidden Wilderness. So Forbidden Wilderness is a tabletop game that we've taken a look at before, kind of based off of American cryptids and folklore. You had like Johnny Appleseed were fighting cryptids. And so this takes all of those cryptids and kind of puts them in the Morkborg world with Morkborg style powers. And so you can fight all of these weird cryptids. And then we also have Rotten Bits. And these are just a few more things, different types of creatures, different that you can encounter, or different type of henchmen and people that you can hire for your war bands. And so that is the base game of Forbidden Psalm and its expansions that I own. This was an old version of Regicide that I made before I was able to find the physical edition. So this is a zine that I printed, and as you can see, it's pretty thick. And so this would be at 80 pages. This is definitely the largest zine that I've ever made. And then we have the Forbidden Psalm set in the cyberpunk world. We have Kill Sample Process. And so this, you could use this along with Cyborg. And so this is to Cyborg as Forbidden Psalm is to Morkborg. And this is a book that I have not really taken a look at yet. And I've had it for a while, but I just haven't put the time aside to check it out or to play it. And I think a lot of that probably has to do with just because I have more things that are compatible with Morkborg, especially, you know, either miniatures or cardboard standees. I have more fantasy things than I do science fiction things. I have a lot of Loke battle mats that I use. So I don't use 3D terrain when I play Forbidden Psalm. I just use 2D battle mats. And I find that that works perfectly well. I do have the sci-fi kind of cyberpunk Loke battle mats that I did get for this. And so I just need to kind of put together some stuff in order for me to play Kill Sample Process. But it's a really nice book, and it seems a little more robust than Forbidden Psalm. It kind of feels like maybe it has one or two expansions baked in. Now, speaking of an original take on Morkborg, so Mork Bowl combines Blood Bowl with Morkborg. And so, hey, if you want to play a game of violent football in your games of Morkborg, you can check out Mork Bowl. And so this is kind of a supplement for skirmish sports. And it's very, very much inspired by Blood Bowl, but it's Blood Bowl with Morkborg, and you have your team roster and you have different coaches and different teams and things. So super cool. But again, something that I haven't played. I pretty much just backed this on Kickstarter as kind of a novelty because I think this is a really neat idea. And then we have our big full conversion mods. And I like all of these a lot. I think they all have really cool things to offer. And I don't have the Western one. I think the Western one, I can't remember. Frontier Scum, that's what it's called. I think that might be going back to Kickstarter. I think I saw something on that. So I need to pull the trigger on that because of how much I love weird Westerns. But Pirate Borg, I've done a detailed video on Pirate Borg. Pirate Borg is fantastic. The reference cards are great. You have all kinds of different things for your different ships and vessels and all of your different weapons and all of your bestiary cards. This is such a great deck of cards. I love it. We have a really cool map of the Dark Caribbean. Two different versions there. And then Pirate Borg is just so much fun. I actually played a game of Pirate Borg on YouTube with Paul from Stone Axe Gaming Table, and it was super fun. But yeah, this is such a cool book. It's so well made. The pages are nice. The writing is great. There's lots of different randomizers, all kinds of different charts and tables and things. Pirate Borg is super, super cool. And then we also have a Ronin for you Samurai Champloo fans or Afro Samurai, that kind of hip hop samurai style of play. We have Ronin, so this is kind of a Japanese setting for Morkborg. And this is a great book. Again, really, really well made, all kinds of cool things. This one, I think, does take the graphic design to a place where it's a little even too hard to read for me sometimes. And a lot of that does have to do with the font. The font they use on the page is so tiny, and there's a lot of space on each page where they could have bumped up the size of the font. And so that is one issue that I do have with this book, but it's really nice. And that also, we have Tales of the Masterless Samurai, which are solo rules specifically made for Ronin. And so these will have all of your solo rules. And again, the text is just so tiny. And it's not very high res, especially the text that's used on some of the darker or more convoluted backgrounds. It can be hard to read, but this is a great little solo supplement. And so you could just get Ronin and Tales of the Masterless and play for probably a dozen hours or so. There's a lot of stuff going into Ronin. And Ronin also does have Lady of the Snow, kind of Lady Snowblood. I think that's even the Lady Snowblood font, or the font that they used. And looks like that's Lady Snowblood herself there. But this is a pre-made adventure for Ronin. And we do have Castaway. Now, Castaway is great, and Castaway does have its own bespoke solo rules called Stranded. And in Castaway, you are a lone castaway on an island trying to survive. So this is kind of like Mork Borg meets Robinson Crusoe. But the solo rules are great. They're unique, so I do highly recommend those. And Castaway itself is fantastic. This is a great game. I had a lot of fun playing this. And it is something I think about often, and it is something that I do want to return to. But I do highly recommend Castaway along with the Stranded solo supplement. The final thing we have to take a look at, and that is Mork Manual. So Mork Manual is kind of a more traditional fantasy take on Mork Borg. And we have taken a detailed look at this from Rodney Rickrobe, and this is awesome. The characters in Mork Manual, they start a little more powerful. They're not as squishy. They're not as disposable as the characters are in Mork Borg. So if you want to play a longer term or long-term campaign, I think Mork Manual is the way to go. And you can still use all of your other supplements as supplements for Mork Manual. It has a great bestiary. It has really cool characters and gear and powers, and it just in a more traditional fantasy setting. So if the kind of weird, dark, black metal setting of Mork Borg isn't something for you, but you like to experience a kind of very rules-light system, you might want to check out Mork Manual, and it's still 100% compatible with Solitary Defilement, which is really nice. And these are just some cheat sheets that I laminated for Mork Manual, and some old character sheets there. But yes, so hey, that was a very long, comprehensive look at everything that I currently own as of August 2025 for Mork Borg. I hope you guys enjoyed listening to me talk about this game. It's one of my favorites. And like I said many times before, I enjoy collecting and reading Mork Borg books just as much as I do playing the game, and I really enjoy playing the game. So we will talk to you later. Take it easy. Bye-bye.